this meeting to order at this time and ask if there's any declarations of interest. Seeing none, before I move to community announcements, we are a character community. As you can see by the banners around the top of our council chamber, we try to work and live by those attributes, and February has a new attribute. Councillor Foster.
So the attribute for February is initiative, and meaning we will recognize what needs to be done and do it without prompting from others. Thank you. Back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. And with that, we will start with our community announcements. Perhaps I could start with you, Councillor Foster.
None at this time.
Thank you. Councillor Morton.
Well, I had the pleasure of a meet and greet on Sunday with Councillor Crone and Mayor Haxon, and I think we had about 25 people there, and the conversation was interesting at times. And Councillor Foster and I also attended our first heritage meeting, and there was a lot of discussion on certain properties, and we will be working to eliminate some of the houses and that, or the buildings, properties that are on the Heritage Committee right now that there seems to be an issue with. So.
Not remove the buildings,
No,
remove them from the
remove
list.
them off the list, sorry.
Thank you. Just wanted to make that perfectly clear.
Well, we do have a building that we are.
Thank you. Councillor Persichini.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one, I attended Carol Maroney's open house on this Friday, last Friday. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Roy DiClemente.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to advise committee, I think they may have seen an email over the weekend, but the Ontario Library Association had their conference late last week, and it's Canada's largest library trade show and conference. Our public library staff and board trustees were in attendance. Many of our staff members presented at sessions at the conference, and most of those sessions were full houses, and so I thought that it was a really good indication that our library staff have a reputation for professional excellence and innovation in their field, and I just wanted to acknowledge them today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to reiterate what Councillor Morton said. We had a very good coffee with council on the weekend. I want to thank everyone for coming out. We had some very good conversation. Councillor Carruthers and myself attended last week a economic development seminar, which was particularly aimed at new councillors and new members of committee. So it was, I found it of great value. As well, I had the privilege of meeting with two levels of government last week to talk about broadband. I spoke with our member of Provincial Parliament, Caroline Mulrooney. We talked about it. And I met with Prime Minister Trudeau when he was in town, and he was very supportive of it. Both were very supportive of it. And as well, I'd like to remind folks that we are in the middle of a by-election, and the East Gwillimbury Chamber of Commerce is sponsoring a by-election meeting here February 11th from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., and it's going to be held at Lions and Son restaurant on Woodbine in Mount Albert Road. That's all for me.
Thank you very much. Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Today marks we celebrate the Spring Festival and welcome the Year of the Pig. So it's Happy Chinese New Year to all those who celebrate, or Gung Hei Fat Choi. So that's today. And on Thursday, we're having community conversations with Ward 1 councillors, myself and Councillor Foster, at 6 o'clock. That's Thursday, February 7th, 6 o'clock at the Holland Landing Community Centre. We're looking forward to hearing from the community and starting some conversations. As well, this past week, as Councillor Crone had said, we went down for the economic development training, and I had a meeting with our regional chair, Wayne Emerson, to talk about issues in East Gwillimbury. Thank you.
It's been a busy couple weeks, very busy. I attended a two-day regional workshop more recently, and talking about budget and a number of items at the regional level, particularly some projects for East Gwillimbury. We had the LSRCA Annual General Meeting, and congratulations to Chair Emerson, who is now the chair of the LSRCA. So he's got 2 chairs he needs to deal with. I had the opportunity, we were invited to go to the Amateur Radio Club Winter Field Day a couple of weeks ago. It was a very, very cold day, and I decided that it was important to head out and see what they really do. And amateur radio was originally called the York North Amateur Radio Club. It was founded in 1959. And they're one of the largest radio clubs in the Greater Toronto Area. They provide free communication services to community events, which we know they do in East Gwillimbury, but they're also there in times of disaster in a community. So they were setting up and showing both myself and Deputy Mayor Vey from Newmarket how they operate, and they can operate when other communication has come down, because they have a very different system, the old ham radio. So a group of gentlemen who are very dedicated to it, and they're out there for us when it's needed. I also attended ROMA, which is Rural Ontario Municipal Association, and there were a number of highlights there, particularly talking about some rural issues with ministers, and I think we're going to see some changes made on a few of small things that we're looking at. I attended the 100 Women of York Region Who Care, and we all care. This is a group of ladies, 100, that donate to a rolling group of not-for-profits, and Doan House Hospice was the recipient this month. I too attended the open house for Caroline Mulrooney, and a lot of good dialogue and discussion about what's happening in York Region, particularly the north for her, and a number of projects that we have on the go that we're waiting to hear from the province, as well as some speculation on where they're going. At this time, we didn't get anything definitive, but we certainly had some good dialogue and felt that what we were talking about we were heard. So that was very important. It was a pleasure to be with Councillor Crone and Morton on Sunday to have a meet and greet and lots of discussion about rural East Gwillimbury as well as Mount Albert. And I know that we all have a little list of things that we're going to see if we can address with our members of staff. And the last thing is, on Sunday night, I represented council at the celebration of the Chinese New Year, the Year of the Pig. It was the first event that's ever been held for the Chinese New Year in East Gwillimbury, and it was at the sports complex. There were between 100 and 150 residents. I had asked if they were all residents of East Gwillimbury, and yes, they are. And so they had quite a nice evening, more children than adults, with all kinds of games. In fact, at one point they were even playing musical chairs with the children. It was quite an event. So I would hope that next year more members of council will be invited to go as well. But it was, for their first year, it was very well done. Just the last point is I have put together a York Regional Council highlights. We are in the middle of budget at the region, and certainly not by no means finished, but it is noted that it's a long process. You can well imagine with the amount of communities that are involved, and the budget has been most important for our meetings the last couple of weeks. The highlights are on our website, so if anybody wants to have a look at it, they can go there at several pages. With that, I believe that we have finished our community announcements. Item D is presentations, and Mr. Clerk, I'm not seeing any presentations at this time.
That is correct, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And item E is deputations. I wonder if you would introduce our first deputant, please.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, your first deputant is C. Thibault, Executive Director, Central Counties Tourism, making a deputation to committee regarding the Central Counties Tourism, the Regional Tourism Organization, Zone 6, and the York Region Arts Council.
Welcome to East Gwillimbury. Good to have you with us today.
Thank you so much. So I'm Chuck, and this is Divya. Now, I think we had 5 minutes, but with through you with permission, our presentation can run like 8 to 10. Is that going to be okay today?
Well, we'll, let's say 8.
Yeah.
And we'll go from there. There is.
Perfect. It's exciting. So you'll fly by.
We won't even recognize the time
That's-
except for one person that keeps track of time.
That's right. So my name is Chuck, and I am the Executive Director of Central Counties Tourism. We are the provincially funded not-for-profit that's dedicated to developing, supporting, and promoting the tourism assets of Durham Region, York Region, and the Headwaters Tourism Region, which is Dufferin County, Caledon, and Erin. And with me today is Divya.
Hi, I'm Divya Sineroy. I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager for the York Region Arts Council. We are an independent nonprofit charity and regional appointed destination marketing organization dedicated to educating, developing, and promoting York Region as a vibrant arts, culture, and tourism destination. We work collaboratively with Central Counties Tourism, the regional municipality of York, each municipality, and many stakeholders.
So the reason we thought we'd come out today is with a new council in October, with now you've got your feet wet, we really want to talk about how together collectively we can really drive the economic impact that tourism can have on the municipalities throughout York Region. I think the first thing we really need to do is define what a tourist is. You know, when you think tourist, you think of someone who looks like me, but with a Tilly hat, zinc on my nose, Hawaiian shirt, camera, shorts, socks, and sandals. And in reality, when it comes to tourism throughout York Region, we have the blessing and the curse of being right next to the biggest tourism market or tourist market in Canada. We have 5 million people who will want, we want to have them come up and visit. None of them are going to think of themselves as a tourist when they come to visit. They're going to think of themselves as a visitor. The easiest way to define tourism is having someone who doesn't live in a community or work in a community come and spend their hard-earned disposable income within that community. So a couple years ago when my family came and did the Farm to Fork tour and bought our Thanksgiving dinner on a full-day trip and spent more than I probably should have, but it was a good dinner. That was new money that came into this community. And what that does, that goes to the people who work in this community and then hopefully spend it in the community on groceries and doing their other things. So it's for every dollar that I spend, hopefully it then trickles through. Tourism is big business, and I know we get into the macro numbers, it's a little scary, but this is from StatsCan 2016. It says about 5 million visitors came through York Region in 2016, spending $308 million at the thousands of businesses that employ tens of thousands of residents. It seems like a huge number, but in reality, it's about 13,000 people a day. And if you just look at our corridor systems, so someone coming up from Toronto who's stopping in to have lunch somewhere on their way somewhere else, it's not a very big number. And I think that it's actually a little off. And the hardest thing for us to try to manage is figuring out what these numbers actually are. Embracing tourism helps your community. It attracts new business and new residents. No one really wakes up in Hamilton on a Saturday morning and says, hey, I'm going to move to East Gwillimbury. But if they've heard about the Sharon Temple, or they've decided to come to an event here, they will come up, they will visit, they'll say, man, I got to get out of the hammer. I want to come up here instead. And it can change people's perception and can get them to move. And the same thing goes with businesses. If you have the right people coming to visit who own businesses, they can say, man, I want to open up shop here. I want to, it's a great place to live and to work. And it retains and grows the current businesses. Having an extra 10 people come through your door a week for some of these smaller restaurants or attractions can sometimes mean the difference between your favorite coffee shop being open year-round and your favorite coffee shop being closed through the winter time. It's an important thing to remember. It affects everyone. And the more we have going on, you become a more vibrant place to live, work, and visit. At the end of the day, we don't own anything, Debbie and I. We're here to help support it. Really, it's your municipal business or your businesses that cater to tourism and your municipal public assets that are the drivers of tourism in this region. And we work really closely with Amy and Lori, who do a fantastic job at a community level, piecing things together, creating these great events and destinations, and then we do our best to push it out to try to drive more people in. So, with our friends at York Regional Arts Council, they're doing placemaking. They're trying to get people to really move around the region. And then what we try to do is get people to come into the region. We want to close the trade deficit. And there's it's same as anything else. There's a trade deficit when it comes to tourism. Our idea is to keep as many people here as possible and then to drive as many more people in. We'd rather have someone from East Gwillimbury spend the weekend in East Gwillimbury doing things and spending money at the same time as inviting more people in. And we do that in a lot of different ways. And, this is the main slide. We're here to help. So in East Gwillimbury, we've got, and we partnered with you to do the East Gwillimbury website. We did a community tourism plan, which is probably due for a refresh in the next little bit. You've got your farm to fork events and the marketing and your workshops. A ton of fantastic activities are already taking place.
Yeah, and from our end, we support the town of East Gwillimbury through just supporting the things listed up there. So experienceyorkregion.com is our website where we really ask people who live in the community to come visit that website to see what is going on, to really create a place and a space that makes East Gwillimbury and York Region a fun and inviting place to live. So the new Tapestry of Taste event that's run by the town's Community Parks Rec and Culture Department is included in the 2019 York Region Festival Trail. That's our annual umbrella multi-channel marketing campaign. Through various initiatives, we also work closely with the Sharon Temple, East Gwillimbury Chamber of Commerce's Tourism Committee, and local businesses such as Pheasants Run Golf Club. We also promote Town of East Gwillimbury events and tourism asset through our annual visitors guide and consumer website, as I mentioned, experienceyorkregion.com. And in addition to all of that, we offer educational programming and industry expert speakers to build capacity for event organizers, artists, creative entrepreneurs, and tourism business owners.
And then at Central Counties, we want to leverage investment. So we have money, and we have money that we would prefer to take our dollar and turn it into $2 or turn it into $3. And that's really what tourism is all about. If like we did with the website. So, between the community, we came up with half the funds, and then Central Counties was able to match and do that. So going forward, when we are talking, we really want to talk about alignment and amplification and figure out how do we drive more business, how do we leverage the limited dollars that are available for tourism and make it have the biggest economic impact that we can. So at the end of the day, tourism spending, it's an investment, not an expense. And that's our presentation, and hopefully I kept within the 8 minutes.
You did. You were even less than that.
Perfect.
Very
Okay,
good.
Good.
Very good. Questions from members of the committee? Councillor Roy DeClemente.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Chuck and Divya, thank you for this presentation. I know I've been to some of your symposiums and some of the trends that are happening as far as creating experiences for people, and I think some of the signature events that our community has built have really been had some of their genesis in some of the work that you've been doing. I wanted to comment that I think the partnership that we've developed with our chamber, with our staff, with the Arts Council and so on, I think we've been able to leverage the money that you've spent with us and really turn it into more. And I think you're seeing the fruits of those labors. Is there something else that we can do that can continue to foster this really great relationship?
Well, I think, first of all, thank you for mentioning the symposium. It's coming up March 4th, so please, if you want to come out, we'd love to have you. You can learn a lot about how we can start to build these destinations. I think probably doing a little refresh on the community tourism plan would make sense, because we want to work with the community and find out what success looks like for you now, because it could have changed over the last 3 years. And what are the new action items, and then how can we collectively make those action items come to life?
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have a motion to receive. Councillor Roy DeClemente. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you so much for being here, giving us lots of thoughts that we can work with you, and perhaps we can get in a little further.
That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, your next deputant is Jay Gamble, making a deputation committee regarding request to rezone property to RU.
Welcome, Mr. Gamble. Good to have you with us today. It's your fortunate day. If you wanted a couple extra minutes, now's the time to do it, because we normally don't go much over 5 minutes. However, since our previous presenter was 7 minutes, I would allow you that time if you need it, and if not, we'll understand that too.
Well, if we can save a few minutes, I'll pass it on to the next deputy.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Actually, the prime reason for being here, other than the rural zoning, was the question of the 5-minute limit, and also question to the 24-hour notice required to appear. It's been encouraging to see that council has streamed their meetings. Most encouraging to hear that they allowed this gentleman 7 minutes. Basically, I think you're trying to reach out to the residents and say, come talk to us. And it's great. But if I might suggest publishing of the 5 minutes, the fact that every time I spoke to someone was, well, don't forget, it's 5 minutes. That I took to be a very negative message to a resident saying, well, you know, what can I do in 5 minutes? And, well, they don't really want to talk to me if it's only 5 minutes. So that it just seems to be inconsistent with transparency, inclusiveness, and just doesn't seem to wash. So something to consider. The other is the 24-hour notice. If I wish to make a deputation here on the previous Thursday, I believe, at noon, an agenda is published. I have 24 hours to sit down, figure out what I want to say, do any research, collect any data, and get notice into the town saying, I want to appear at the next meeting. Now, the next meeting isn't till Wednesday. So I have 24 hours, noon to noon, Thursday to Friday. If I'm working, fortunately I'm not, but most people are. That doesn't give me much time to do anything. And let's face it, the town is not going to be working over the weekend. Very unlikely anyway. What I would like to suggest is that that be expanded, so say Thursday at noon till Monday at noon. That'll give residents the opportunity to spend a weekend, which is the only time they have available, preparing something to bring to council. Just a suggestion. How am I running on time?
You're at 2 minutes right now, so you have 5 left.
Ooh, awesome. As part of the rezoning that was published back in May, my property was not only cut in half, in effect, for environmental planning, but I didn't discover until about 2 weeks ago that my rural property has now been rezoned residential, and with basically no notice. Now, I know I've been told, well, you know, it was just sort of slid through as part of the whole planning process. And I'm going, not really. My understanding is there were 15 properties that were rezoned, and there was no notice given. And no one would ever realize in a month of Sundays their property had been rezoned. The only reason I found out is I happened to call and said, I'd like to put up a wind turbine on my property. What do I need to do? The staff was phenomenal. First off, they said, we haven't a clue. And I said, okay, but leave it with us. So a couple of days later, he called back. I still haven't a clue, but we're working on it. Then he called back and said, okay, you can go 10 meters, blah, 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 blah. And somehow it came about that, well, you know, you're residential. I said, no, I'm rural. No, you're residential. Well, come on, guys. 20 years ago, I built a shop on my property, and I basically had to jump through hoops. Because I was rural, I needed 25 meters of setback, as opposed to, I think, 3 meters for residential, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I had a problem with the fact that my property was rezoned, basically with no knowledge. And so basically, I'm requesting it be returned to rural. And I'll gladly contribute my remaining 2 minutes to the next deputant.
Thank you very much. Any questions of the deputant? Seeing none, a motion to receive. Councillor Roy DiClemente, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. I will make just a couple of comments that your issue is with process of what we do here, and so we certainly will be talking about it with staff. I'm sure that there's reasons why, but I'm also sure that we can certainly take a look at it and see if somehow we can streamline it for people. And as far as your property, as you're aware, it's under review right now, under appeal. So we'll just leave it at that, and knowing that at some point moving forward, there will be a resolution and you will be notified.
Okay, just a last note to that. I don't know the exact RSO, but May 16th, the Ontario government did pass a resolution, or RSO, Revised Statute of Ontario, which stated that townships were required to give written notice to residents in any case where there was less than 100 residents involved. I think this sort of falls into there, despite the fact that there was an overall. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Webster, did you have comments, please?
I did, Madam Mayor, and I haven't met Mr. Gamble, and I have seen him in the building a few times, and I think he's been talking to planning, I think he's talked to our legal department. Sometimes these things can get a little fragmented. So one of the things I'd like to commit to is, from staff, is while the deputation limit might be 5 minutes, we have a lot of time to meet with residents to go over their concerns. And I'll personally commit to sitting down with Mr. Gamble and our new planner, Mr. Ramuno. Our new planner has been aboard for a month now, and he has extensive experience in zoning and a number of other matters, and I think it'll be very helpful to this process. I can just state a couple of facts. It's not our intention to zone 15 properties or rezone them without advisement to people and folks, and so we're going to fix that. We'll not just talk to Mr. Gamble, but I'll ask Mr. Ramuno to find out those other 14 properties, and we'll talk to them as well. With regards to the outstanding appeals, we're doing our best as a staff team to deliver what council has asked, and that's to keep the rules to where they were in '97. And in this case here, it looks like some of the changes were made to what was happening in '97, and we'll look towards rectifying that and having open communication. We're hopeful that Mr. Ramuno, he's been working with the staff team, will be able to bring some of these options forward to council in the near future for discussion.
Might I just add, in all of my communications with the staff, they have been most helpful and providing any data I needed. Even if they didn't have it, they went and found it, and that is appreciated. It's just a look I'm trying to go this 5 minute and 24 hour. It might just be a decision to say that council reserves the right to limit, and leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too.
We are at item F, and that is legal and council support services with Councillor Foster in the chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have none at this time from Legal and Council Support Services. I will ask General Manager Horner if he has any comments.
Nothing to add, but happy to take any questions.
Seeing none, I'll turn it back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We're under administration with myself in the chair, and as you'll note, there are no reports at this time. Mr. Webster, is there any verbal updates?
There is, Madam Mayor. Just I wanted to note that our first council workshop is being scheduled. The agenda will be distributed later today or tomorrow, and for next Tuesday. And we have a multi-department presentation on growth management that staff have been working on. And as well, there's 2 other topics that day, so I think we'll have a full day of workshop, and I believe that as well will be live streamed, so available to the public for the first time in that format.
Thank you very much. We're at item H, and that is Emergency and Community Safety Services with Councillor Roy DiClemente in the chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are no prepared items on our agenda. Deputy Chief Jago, do you have anything to report at this time?
I have nothing to report.
Members of committee, anything to raise under this area? Seeing none, I'll turn the chair back to you.
Thank you very much. We're under Corporate Services with Councillor Morton in the chair, and I know that you have reports, so we're going to get into that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We do have two reports under this, under Corporate Services. And so if I could get a motion to go ahead with the discussion on this. Councillor Crone? So, Mr. Valchich, I will turn that over to you now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a memo that's just here to provide some supplementary information coming out of the Budget Committee deliberations regarding our transitional cost reduction strategy that we've had in place for the last few years. And I think the memo speaks for itself, but we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions from members of committee? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of receiving this schedule? Okay, motion's carried. The next one, if I can get a motion to receive the next memorandum. Councillor Roy DiClemente. Mr. Valchich, would you like to take the floor on this one?
Madam Chair, thank you. This is just to provide an update on a very significant process that's been underway for the last several months. It's the development of our updated background study for development charges and new bylaw, which will be required. Our existing bylaw, the town bylaw, expires in June of 2019, so we are looking to have a new bylaw in front of council that you could approve. Prior to that, a couple of milestones that are outlined in the memo, just give you an idea of when some key activities will be taking place, notably the release of the background study that'll be coming up in the next handful of weeks, and then a public meeting. And at that public meeting, staff would provide a fairly detailed overview of the capital plan, the assumptions, the charges proposed, etc., and then looking to see something approved by council in May sometime that would set us up for a new bylaw effective June. I do want to just comment, although it is outlined in the memo, that we have met a number of times, not just the finance team, but the management team in general, responsible for the various operating areas as well. With the development industry, it's a very consultative process, and we look forward to hopefully completing this one without appeal, which is what we've been able to successfully do for the last few iterations. Thank you.
Questions for Mr. Valchich? Hearing none. All in favor of the memorandum? Motion's carried. Mr. Valchich, you have anything else under corporate services that you'd like to bring forward?
Nothing further. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions from members of committee? Hearing none. Madam Mayor, I turn the chair back to you.
Thank you very much. We're under item J with Community Parks, Recreation, Culture, and Councillor Persicini in the chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have 4 items here. The first item is Community Park Recs and Culture Report, CPRC 2019-05, Fair EG Subsidized Pilot Program. You have it in front of you between the page 16 to 24. The General Manager, Carmison, do you have any comments on this?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Just a few highlights related to this report. This is a program that was developed as a recommendation from the Element Department review, as well as the Region of York fee review performed back in 2017. There's a proposed program to supplement Region of York programs, as well as our Mayor and Youth and Community Initiatives funds, providing options for individuals and families that are just above the low-income cutoff and that have barriers to accessing recreation. This is a pilot project that was built based on another program that is running in a neighboring community that has been running successfully for a number of years. This is a process that's proposed that is confidential, dignified, respectful, and vetted through our financial services department. This is also a program that's not meant to replace paid registrations. It's meant to provide additional opportunities to those individuals and families that may have some socioeconomic barriers that we're not currently providing opportunities to. We have a brief presentation today from Rhonda Pogue, our Manager of Recreation, Community Engagement and Events, as well as Kylie Malwini, our Recreation Coordinator.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, councillors, senior management team, staff, and members of the community. My name is Rhonda Pogue, Manager of Recreation, Community Engagement and Events. Today I'm here with Kylie Malwini, our Recreation Coordinator with CPRC, to present to you FAIR EG.
Thank you, Rhonda. FAIR EG is a subsidy program created by CPRC to provide opportunity for fair, accessible, and inclusive recreation for the residents of East Gwillimbury. FAIR EG is geared towards those residents that do not have the discretionary income to participate in recreational programming and do not fall into the categories to receive funding from existing subsidy programs. CPRC currently works with the Mayor and Council and the Youth and Communities Initiative Fund to receive funding for residents of East Gwillimbury under the age of 19 and those over 19 with disabilities and/or financial barriers to participation. CPRC also works closely with the Region of York with funding from York Play and Recreational Camp Subsidy. Both the Youth and Community Initiatives Fund and the York Region Fee Assistance Program focus on individuals and families that are below the low-income cutoff. And these programs have some other limitations, such as limited resources that must be allocated to a number of initiatives throughout the region. Our goal in CPRC is to create opportunities, not barriers, and to foster an inclusive approach to recreation, and we believe FAIR EG is a great way to do so. The FAIR EG process will be completely confidential, respectful, and dignified. The process would involve a user-friendly application, either online or hard copy, and confirmation of residency, dependence, and income. Select staff trained in the program will be available to confidentially consult with applicants and assist with the process if necessary. FAIR EG and eligible discounts will be available to those based on number of members in the household as well as household income on a sliding scale. Similar subsidy programs have been proven successful in other municipalities over multiple years and program sessions. FAIR EG is ready for implementation in time for the 2019 Spring and Summer Health and Active Living Guide launch and registration opening day on Family Day. This timeline allows for access and participation during the 2019 Spring and Summer program session. We are happy to answer any questions you may have in regards to FAIR EG.
Just a comment, very good. This is a great program, so I'm looking forward to seeing it work, so thank you. Councilor Morton, please.
Thank you. I think this is a wonderful opportunity, and thank you and everyone that's been involved to do this. Just a question for you. I know that you're going to be advertising it everywhere that you possibly can. Will notices be being put up in the schools and being sent to all the school councils so that they have it as well in case there's someone that doesn't have access to all of the other entities that you send out the information to?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Morton, thank you. That's a great question. We definitely have established great relationships with our schools and our parent councils, and our plan is to pass on that information as we do our daily information with events and programs.
Thank you. Wonderful, thank you.
Councillor Crone first, and Councillor Carruthers next.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, through you to staff. A couple of questions. How many folks do you anticipate will be accessing this program? Would you estimate?
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there is some data in the report with some census data on statistics for low-income cutoff individuals in the town of East Gwillimbury by age category. It is indicated in that portion of the report that less than 5% of our population would be accessing this type of a program. And it's a type of a program that is not meant to replace existing full paid registrations. It's to provide additional access to those individuals that normally wouldn't have the discretionary dollars or the disposable income to register in parks and recreation programs.
Okay, that's good. It's a challenge balancing. You don't want to put it so high that no one can access it, and then so low that everyone accesses it. So I'm sure there'll be a bit of tweaking as you go along. I think this is a great program. I'm really excited to see it coming on board. I think that's something we heard loud and clear at the doors during the election campaign, that people wanted affordable, accessible recreation programs. So I congratulate you on all the hard work that's been done. Just last question that I had was, how much consultation did you do with community groups or residents around this, like the creation of this program?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we did extensive consultation with a neighboring municipality that has a similar program that's being implemented. In addition to that, we did note through the data that was gathered through the element report, the regional fee audit, as well as the health and active living master planning process, the requirement and the gap that existed in the community for those individuals and families that are above the low income cutoff. And we had done some research and found a program that we modeled our program after that had met that need. So there was quite a bit of background research performed with regards to the program and the needs that it will meet in the community, in particular for the individuals and families that are just above that low income cutoff.
Councillor Clatters?
Thank you. I just want to applaud staff for putting this together. It seems very fair. I think addressing poverty in our town is important because poverty is often hidden. So this looks like it's a good way for people to be able to access this program. I hope that we will be getting detailed follow-up reports about how people are accessing this, or if not, why they're not. I also wanted to reiterate Councillor Morton's comments about the schools. Our principals are so in touch with their community, with their parents and their students, knowing who falls under poverty. And sometimes they might not fit the definitions. I think that how we've set this up is very good, but I'm hoping that we can have some flexibility, that if you had someone like a principal come forward about a particular family that's undergoing some hardship, that we could have a little bit of flexibility around this, and that we would work with our principals in our schools. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Congratulations. I think it's wonderful. You've done a lot of work on it. And I know it's going to make a difference to families in our community, without a doubt. I'm pleased to see that in the report, it also mentions the Mayor and Council Golf Tournament Youth Assistance Fund as well, because we want to work collectively together, and we do raise a lot of funds from that golf tournament that are available for families that can't afford. So I think it's a good partnership with that. I'm wondering about getting the word out, and you know, we continually hear, we think we've done a really good job, and then later on we hear, well, we didn't hear. So I like the idea of the schools. I think that's terrific. I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to somehow access past program participants and get that out as well. And I don't know if the region, I know that we do some programs with the region that are for families that would like to take advantage of camps, particularly I think in the summertime, but I'm wondering how we may be able to have them support this program as well by identifying students that in fact may have a need to be a part of our programming. So I just know we've talked about it before, about how we're in the middle of many generations in that we have many people who still want to see things on paper, and they're in the newspaper and they advertise. And then we have people who don't read the newspaper at all, and we have that other end where it's most important that it be done on social media. So someday maybe the paper will not be as popular, although it seems to be now, as long as it's delivered to the right places. But I think we just have to think more creative about how do we hit people, and it's just not one way of doing it anymore. And I think you've captured it here, so thank you very much.
Councillor Roy DeClemente, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For me, this is the final piece in the puzzle of a process that was begun when we had the Allman report and the departmental review. We were taught, council gave direction to address cost recovery issues, program registration issues, and making sure. And while we were out canvassing, we were hearing the town is raising fees and I can't afford it. And it was really, it's coming. Please wait, staff are working on it, and this, for me, is the final piece in that puzzle in really trying to be strategic and responsive, as well as continuously improve our recreation programs and service delivery. So I want to commend staff for that, and like I said, it's the final piece in that puzzle for me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions? Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Roy DeClemente. All in favor of the move? Opposed? Motion carried. General Manager Carmazon, do you have any to add on this memo there?
Through you, Mr. Chair, nothing further at this time. Thank you.
We'll go on to the next item. Community Park and Recs and Culture Center. CPRC 2019-06, Transparency of Taste of the International Food and Crafts Beer Festival. You have it in front of you on page 25 to 38. General Manager Carmazon, do you have any comments on this matter? Item?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a few brief points. That this is an exciting partnership event concept that we hope will be a signature event and festival for East Gwillimbury, bringing together the communities in East Gwillimbury and existing and new residents. We are seeking the support for the event concept. As a next step, we would pursue sponsorship through a number of prospective supporters and report back to council with a detailed logistical and financial strategy. We do have prepared today a brief presentation from Lori Woodyett with the Sharon Temple, Rhonda Pogue, our Manager of Community Engagement and Events, and Allison Usher, our Special Events Coordinator.
Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, Madam Mayor, councillors, senior management team, staff, and members of the community. My name is Rhonda Polk, Manager of Recreation, Community Engagement, and Events. I'm here today with Allison Usher, Events Coordinator with CPRC, and Lori Woodyett, Executive Director of the Sharon Temple National Historic Site. Community Parks, Recreation and Culture, and the Sharon Temple have come together to present to you a new and exciting festival that will draw together the existing East Gwillimbury community and welcome new East Gwillimbury residents. The event will further increase tourism and boost local spending. This event will celebrate our past and highlight our future. We would like to introduce Tapestry of Taste, East Gwillimbury International Food Truck and Craft Beer Festival, planned for August 9th to 11th, 2019 at the Civic Center in Sharon Temple. In partnership with the Sharon Temple, Tapestry of Taste, also known as #TAUT2019, will bring together colorful and diverse cultures, food, and entertainment from all around the world, and right here in East Gwillimbury. TAUT 2019 will also have an emphasis on the history of EG and the history of the Sharon Temple through music, displays, performances, and storytelling. Tapestry of Taste will have 3 specific and distinct areas. And to speak more about those areas, I'd like to introduce Alison Usher and Laurie Woodyard.
The Around the World Kids Zone will take place just north of the Civic Center parking lot. Our hope is to collaborate and work with community and nonprofit groups to participate in the zone, including the East Gwillimbury Public Library. A few examples of possible activities that you might see in this area are inflatables, crafts, interactive performances, and educational games and activities from around the world. Along with the Around the World Kids Zone, there will also be an international bazaar market that will take place in the green space just north of the Civic Center. This area will feature an international market and art sale that will include vendors both locally and outside of our community. We would also like to include community stakeholders such as the York Region, Mount Albert, and East Gwillimbury Group of Artists, the Chamber of Commerce, and Experience EG.
The Temple grounds will host the food, adult beverages, and entertainment. Our intention is to have 4 to 6 internationally diverse food trucks, as well as 5 local craft brewery and/or cider companies represented. The vendors will pay a percentage of sales for both food and alcohol, as well as an upfront flat fee to participate. We are looking to have 2 headline acts to perform on Friday and Saturday night, with the other hours on the stage being filled with local, culturally diverse performers and entertainers.
So a brief overview of the schedule of events. So the event will kick off its opening night on Friday at the Temple, which will have live entertainment, international food and craft beer, as well as the EG Taste Off, a culturally diverse food competition. On Saturday, we will kick off our Around the World Kids Zone and International Bazaar, both of which will run from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. with the intent of encouraging participation at our international food truck and entertainment zone for the duration of the evening. We are also looking at collaborating with the Car Show Committee to organize a special one-day Cars Around the World show in conjunction with our event. Sunday will wrap up the weekend, and we will have both zones running from 11 to 5 p.m. that day.
Table 1 of our report provides preliminary budget summary of the event. We are seeking sponsorships and grants to assist with the offsetting of the event costs. We are seeking council's support of Tapestry of Taste International Food and Craft Beer Festival in partnership with the Sharon Temple, subject to the procurement of sponsorship funding and further reporting and council approval. I thank you for your time, and I look forward to answering any questions. Thank you.
Councilor Morton.
Through you, Mr. Chair. This is a phenomenal idea, and I'm looking forward to it being such a huge success, because I know that the work that goes into it, you don't want to, at the end of the day, feel that you've let everybody down. But not only do we get to learn about the different nationalities and within East Gwillimbury, they also get to learn about the history of East Gwillimbury and certainly the Sharon Temple. So I think that part is just amazing. And I also want just to comment, I noticed your entertainment budget up there, and I probably know better than anybody how much it does cost for entertainment. But I hope that you will consider the entertainment and the musicians that we have here within our borders, because there's some phenomenal musicians out there, and it doesn't cost you as much as what some of the big names do. So congratulations to you and everyone else that's involved with it, and certainly I wish you all the best of luck on this huge endeavor for your first time.
Thank you, Councilor Morton. Councillor Crone, and then Councillor Carruthers.
You hit this out of the park. This is phenomenal. I'm really excited about this. This is a prime example of one of the reasons why I got into municipal politics. I think this is phenomenal. I think it's going to, as Councillor Morton said, it's going to do a great job of bringing in international flavor, learning about our past. You've really melded the two nicely. I think it's phenomenal. The only thing I would add is just to add on to what Councillor Morton said about sourcing local talent. A lot goes into this. If we can use local businesses, contractors, whatever, to help you pull this off, I would encourage you to do that as much as possible so that the money stays in EG and helps EG. Well done, folks. Really great job.
Thank you, Councillor Crone. Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you so much. I echo those comments. This is wonderful. As EG gets more diverse, it's wonderful to have events like this. My question is around how you will source the international food trucks. I think that if we can get truly international food here, that would be fantastic. If we end up with 14 chip trucks, not so much. So how are you going to go about making sure that there's like halal food and kosher food, and vegetarian, and everything else?
May I answer? Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Carruthers. We actually have started our research on that and reaching out to other organizations that have already done similar type food truck events.
Okay.
Also, I've met a lot of people through our Experienced EG group, so there's a lot of people wanting to help, and so we hope to pull more resources and people in to help make those contacts and decisions with us as a team.
Excellent. My other question is around the budget of $3,000 revenue from vendors' fees. To me, that sounds low, but I haven't organized something like this, so I just want to make sure that we're making sure that the vendors, the food trucks will be making money off this event, that we're charging them enough so that we don't end up at a loss and them with all the profit. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? I'd like to make a comment. This is an exciting time. I was involved for many years participating on the Chin Picnic, and they have the greatest food, international food, entertaining, bicycle race, and they have kids little games, and it's amazing. So this is big time for us. So I'm looking forward to see the first one, and hope we learn from some of the stuff. And it's exciting time for East Gwillimbury. So thank you for the great presentation.
Thank you.
Any other further questions? Anything you want to add? Comment?
Through you, Mr. Chair, nothing further. Thank you.
See none. Can I have a vote? Mover, sorry. Move back, our mayor, and all in favor? Great. Opposed? Okay, so we have another items here. Item number 3, Community Park Recreation and Culture Memo at page 39, Health and Active Living Guide Release and Distributions. General Manager Carmazan, any comments on this memo?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is a memo to inform council of a delivery process that we will be undertaking for the 2019 Health and Active Living Guide. This is in an effort to provide a consistent delivery date and distribution for the Health and Active Living Guide. It should be noted that out of the 9 York Region municipalities, 7 deliver through Metroland News, and 2 municipalities actually don't produce a hard copy guide any longer. An additional very important note is that, as per the memo, staff are informed that some of our newer East Gwillimbury communities have some limited Metroland News delivery. In response to this, staff are working to ensure all of our new communities are included and informed, and have targeted distribution and a specific mailing into these communities, as well as increased website and social media messaging to target these communities, our newer communities, to ensure that they are kept well informed and have access to our Health and Active Living Guide. I'd be happy to answer any questions related to the memo.
So none, can I have a mover, please? Oh, comment from the mayor?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I just want to congratulate staff. I know that many times over the years, we've not known exactly when the book goes out, and I think the public now that are so keen on our programs know exactly when it starts and what to look for, so I think that's really important. Congratulations to staff on that. I think it will enhance our registration and programs as well. People can plan a lot better, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Roy DePlement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I applaud staff's efforts to create some certainty for our residents around its distribution and registration dates. And I also commend them for seeking some cost savings and some efficiencies there. My big concern is that there is a tremendous amount of people in Sharon and Queensville, those very new residents that we're trying to capture, aren't being delivered the EG Express. They're not served by Metroland News. And it's not a question of they've just moved into their house and the newspaper is coming in 6 months. These people have taken possession of their houses 2 years ago and they don't have a newspaper. And so I know staff are aware of this matter. I've brought it to their attention, but I want to make sure that we have the very best possible way of reaching these new people. The new people are the ones that may not know about our systems and our programs, and we want to access them and have them included in our distribution in as much as possible. So I want to make sure that we have the very best alternate way of reaching those people, because it's of deep concern to me. Thank you.
Good comments. Manager Commerson, do you have any, okay, we have our CEO here. Mr. Webster?
The non-delivery by Metroland is very concerning, and I think it's something that we'll ask Mr. Valchich's area under corporate communications. Not only would they be missing our guide, but they're missing one of our main mediums of our town page that we send out on a weekly basis. We spend a lot of time and effort as a town to try to keep our residents informed, and in our dealings with Metroland in the past, they really try to commit to getting it to our residents. So this non-delivery to these new subdivisions will certainly have a concerted effort to talk to Metroland to see if they can improve their efforts and ask why they may not be trying to serve these new areas, and it doesn't seem to be to make much sense. So we'll definitely ask Mr. Karmazin and Mr. Valchich's areas to set something up, and we'll bring back further advisements to council.
Thank you very much. That sounds good. Anybody further question? Then I could move this. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Crone. All in favor? Motion carried. Okay, we have one last item here. Number 4, Community Park Recreation and Culture Memo, Operational Center Update Facility, from page 40 to 52. You have it in front of you. This first item, could I have any comments from the Manager Comison?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is a brief memo to provide an update on the Operations Center project. I'm pleased to report that Phase 1 of the project, the earthworks and servicing for the site, is now 95% complete or substantially complete. Any of the outstanding work is minor, is grading and hydroseeding of certain portions of the site, the perimeter of the site, the stormwater management ponds on the site, and this will be performed over a 2-week period, weather permitting, in the spring. The phase was completed within the planned schedule and under the approved budget with a significant project surplus. The surplus was due to favorable soil conditions on site, as well as grading conditions on site, in particular the amount of actual fill that was required for removal versus the estimated fill with regards to the drawings. As a next step, staff will be proceeding with the tender for the full and value engineered build, and we will report back to council on the procurement process, including a detailed financial strategy for Phase 2 of the project.
Thank you, Manager Commerson. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Morton. All in favor? Carried. Any questions for the committee? Any more questions at all? Nothing? Any further updates, General Manager Comerson?
Through you, Mr. Chair, nothing further at this time. Thank you.
We have a very exciting year, it seems like, and we have so many new things happening, and I'm excited and looking forward for this year. We're going to have a lot of new things and exciting. So good job to everyone. Okay, if I have no other items and no questions, I'll pass it back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We're under item K with Community Infrastructure and Environmental Services with Councillor Carruthers in the chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have nothing at this time. General Manager Molinari, did you have anything for the committee?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Members of the committee, is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll turn the chair back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We're under item L, under Development Services with Councillor Crone in the chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have a couple of items today. First one is the request to remove from the Register of Cultural Heritage Properties the address 2668 Mount Albert Road, Sharon. General Manager Ramuno, do you have any comments on this item?
To you, Mr. Chair, only that this was a request to remove the property from our register, and the report was in front of, or the consideration for the removal was in front of the Heritage Advisory Committee in January, evaluated by staff and the committee, and the Heritage Advisory Committee also recommended that the property be removed from the list.
So committee's on board. Okay. Can I have a mover for this? Councillor Persicini? Okay. Are there any questions from committee? Councillor Carruthers?
Just as a background, how did these properties get on the heritage list to begin with? What's the process?
General Manager. Okay, we'll go to Mr. Webster.
As we move forward and look for workshop topics, a heritage list could certainly be one of them. It probably goes back now about a decade ago, so I'll try to be rifle-like in my answer as I can. The town retained the services of an individual who compiled a lengthy list. There was somewhat of a public process. As administrator, I think the public process might have been a little flawed, frankly, in retrospect. One thing we've learned from the zoning bylaw is folks, when you start dealing with their property and property rights, have the expectation of full transparency. And a very lengthy list was established. I think it's upwards of 500 properties, and it was ambitious. And the messaging at the time that I was advised as administrator from the staff putting it together, and council was advised, was that this list was going to be a dynamic, flexible list, and it would not be really an encumbrance to those that were on this register list. And over time, last term of council, it seemed to become an encumbrance to real estate transactions closing, and that's where it got in front of council a lot. And I think this term of council, there has been some direction provided that we're working on to do a couple things with our Heritage Committee and the Heritage List. I think what those deliverables are to look at the length of the list and maybe look towards streamlining the list. Some of those properties that maybe shouldn't have been put on, maybe being researched and removed. Secondly, I think prioritizing the list and maybe trying to get a few more properties that may willingly want to get actually designated and plaqued. We've had very few that have actually moved to that next level of designation. And thirdly, there's the discussion of districts as well. And again, I think with that, there would have to be a full public process. I look towards, as administrator, our municipal comprehensive review and our official plan. I think our official plans are where things like that should really have signals sent out to communities that what kind of objectives council is looking for. So there is quite a background, and I would volunteer it to be put as a consideration for a future workshop topic. I know we are looking for those, and again, General Manager Ramuno does bring a significant experience in heritage, and I look forward to him being able to work with the Heritage Committee and further educate council and the public, frankly, on how best to move forward with our list.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because getting these as one-offs when we don't have the full picture, it is difficult to make an informed decision. It's good to know that there is 500, that we're not removing 2 of 10, that this is a much bigger picture. I also think that these designations, just like with what we heard from the public around the environmental designation, it shouldn't be punitive to the property owner, that if it is designated, especially the ones that want to move to the next level of being plaqued, that we are working with them and helping them, and it's not punitive to them. So thank you for that background. I appreciate that.
Councillor Roy DiClemente.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's important. I look forward to having a workshop on this item. One of the things that strikes me is that we really need to be careful and clear about what it means to be on the list versus what it means to be designated under the Ontario Heritage Act. And I think we've all agreed that as an organization, we need to be clear about that, and that we need to do better in dealing with the list and also dealing with the designations, because quite frankly, there are properties on that list that should be designated that aren't, and are not benefiting from the protections afforded in the Act to those properties. And yet there are others who may or may not belong on the list, and they're simply on that list because, hey, they might be old, and maybe there's something important here and we should look at them. But it shouldn't be, as Councillor Carruthers said, something punitive, but simply a flag for us to make sure that we don't lose something through an issuance of a demolition permit without due process. Thank you.
Mayor Haxon, you had a comment?
Thank you. I'm looking forward also to having a workshop. We realize that 500 homes cannot be capped and saved, but I think it's most important when we finish that workshop is to have a list of those homes that are important to us, the homes that we know that have the history, and the homes that we feel strongly that need to be saved, and start immediately to ensuring that they are not demolished by neglect, that they are protected, and that we're able to make sure that they're celebrated, and as our CIO has said, start to plaque or designate some that truly belong on that list. So I think it's paring it down and making sure we get the right ones. We know very well that we have some beautiful heritage homes in our community, and some of them are in the eyesights of the bulldozer, and that's unacceptable. So we need to get that list sorted out. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right, very good. There being no further questions, can I have a vote on this? All in favor? Any opposed? None? Motion passed. All right, next item on the list is, again, it's a request for removal from the Register of Cultural Heritage Properties, address 2156 Queensville Side Road. Mr. Ramuno, do you have any comments on this?
Certainly to you, Mr. Chair. This is similar to the Mount Albert property. It was evaluated by staff in the Heritage Advisory Committee in January, and the committee recommended that this be removed from the list. I'll also add, I mean, both of these properties that are in front of council today, even though they were constructed in the late 1800s, they have undergone significant renovations throughout the years, and they're in disrepair, and it was felt by the committee that they were not worth, it wasn't worth the effort to try and repair these homes, and there are a lot other homes on the list that perhaps warrant a designation, and that's the goal and my commitment to the Heritage Committee, that will work towards paring down the list, but also working with those owners who have properties and who really want those properties to be designated under Part 4. As we've heard, we've got close to 500 properties on the register, but only 10 of them are actually listed under Part 4 of the Heritage Act.
Okay, thank you very much. Could I have a mover for this? Councillor Morton? Okay, are there any questions from committee? There being none, can I have a vote to approve? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Mr. Ramuno, any other questions or comments? I think you got some good feedback today from committee on where they stand and hopes and aspirations for the Heritage Committee. Any other comments?
No, not at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I turn the chair back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We have concluded our committees, and we are now at budget. Mr. Velchik, I will turn it over to you at this time.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When Budget Committee last met, staff were directed to come back with a proposal or an approach that might result in an overall tax levy increase for 2019, somewhere between 2.5 and 2.75. There were also some new initiatives within the Mayor and Council portion of the budget that had been approved, and so what staff have done is come back with an approach that would, if Budget Committee is satisfied with it, would result in an overall tax levy increase of 2.55%. And you can see the breakdown on the chart. I do want to point out that we have had an update to the annual inflation numbers since we last met. They're now running at about 2.3, which is more consistent with what they've been through the year. They did dip a little bit in November, I believe it was, but they've ended up around 2.3. So this would be an approach that certainly you could consider. Couple of explanatory points. There's under new initiatives, you can see on the chart there, it does talk about Canada Day $3,000 for Sharon Temple. If you recall, that those were funds that were to be added to the CPRC event budget and then used to support as necessary the Canada Day event at the Temple. And the other one that I wanted to point out is there's a reference there to asphalt resurfacing funding adjustment. That essentially is simply using a little extra federal gas tax money as opposed to tax levy, and it also aligns the tax levy support for our capital program in 2019 with what we supported it in 2018. So I think it's a more appropriate allocation of funding. So it doesn't actually cut the program back, but just changes the funding source. If there's any questions, we're happy to respond. And if Budget Committee is satisfied with this, my suggestion would be that we would come back to the February 20th council meeting with final recommendations for consideration and approval of the budget.
Councillor Crothers.
Thank you for this, and thank you for listening to us. And I'm happy with the increase being kept to 1.97 for our base programs. The extra 1% dedicated for emergency services and new facilities, can this be phrased as increased level of service? Because I think that helps with the taxpayer when they see their bill, that it's less than 2% for inflation on our base programs and then 1% for increased level of services. I think that if that encapsulates what that 1% is going for, I think that's a good message for our community. So I'm very happy to see this at around 2.5%. I think it's very reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Persicini.
Just a comment to the staff for coming back, and these numbers are very good, and thank you to the staff involved and to crunch those numbers for us. It's really appreciated. And then the people out there appreciate it even more.
Councillor Crone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Mr. Velchik. With respect to the item on the EG Chamber of Commerce Tourism Committee, just so I understand the numbers correctly, I think they originally requested, if my memory serves me, 17,000. Is this what we decided to give them, or was this on top of? Could refresh my memory, please.
I'll just ask the director to clarify on that. I believe this is the amount that we ultimately decided, but I'll just have the director maybe provide a little bit of background on the request and the recommendation from Budget Committee.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. This was the amount that that committee decided to provide to them. Their original requests, so their requests have not been built into the budget before, so every year they come back and they ask for a greater amount, and Budget Committee decided to provide the 8,500 consistent with what they've received previously.
Any other questions? Councillor Morton.
Not so much a question, but congratulations to staff, and they've done a great job on this, and to council members too that kept in there and plugging away on what we wanted and what we expected at the end of the day, and the 2.55%. I think that's where we all wanted to be, so congratulations to all of you.
Thank you. Could I have a motion to receive Councillor Persicini? Questions? All those in favor?
Just a question on the motion,
Yes.
if I may. Is it a motion to receive, or are we providing direction to staff to bring it back to us? I think that's what
My
they may be looking
understanding
for.
is that to receive, and that we'll be back here on February the 20th to ratify. Councillor Crothers.
The agenda notes that their supplementary information will be provided at the meeting. Is that just the slide that we received late? Okay.
Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. We look forward to the 20th. I'm sure you do as well. Get on with other business. Mr. Velcher.
Madam Mayor, just as an early heads up, the other thing that will happen on the 20th is we'll be bringing forward the information on the first proposal of the water and wastewater budget as well. So we'd be looking to approve the budget components that you've already deliberated, and we'd be putting the water one forward for your consideration.
When would that one be ratified? Then in March?
We would be hopeful that it would get ratified in March, just to allow us to achieve new rates for the April billing cycle if possible.
Thank you. Do you have the date in March, just so if people are watching that they would have an understanding of what date it may come back to us? March 19th. Thank you very much. Okay. We are down to other business. Is there any other business at this time? Seeing none, I will call for an adjournment. Councillor Crothers, all those in favor? And that's carried at 11:23. Thank you very much. We will be back at 3 o'clock for our council.